biggest story in America right now is that the Republican Party is working hard so that come 2024, it can rig the next presidential election in its favor. Let's not beat around the bush. That's what's going on here. And it seems to have two elements. First, assuming they win back the House next year, the GOP can then block the certification of the 2024 results if they don't like them. But that means also getting rid of any Republicans in Congress who aren't on board. If you voted in favor of impeaching Donald Trump, if you said the election wasn't stolen, the Republicans are coming for you. Ask Liz Cheney, who's about to lose her leadership position. Ask Mitt Romney, who got booed by Republicans back home in Utah last weekend. Ask GOP Congressman Anthony Gonzalez, who was censured this week by his own state party. We're going to talk more about the Liz Cheney angle to this story later this hour with former Reagan official Linda Chavez. But the second element to this GOP strategy for 2024 is even more crucial and disturbing: an all-out assault on voting rights and on election officials at the state level. Trump is encouraging the purge of state election officials who defied him by, following the election laws in their states. Think Brad Raffensperger. And in a whopping 47 out of 50 states, Republican lawmakers have introduced more than 350 restrictive voting bills. So let's look at what they're actually doing, or trying to do, state by state. In Arkansas, they're eliminating automatic voter registration. In Alaska, a new law limiting curbside voting. In Arizona, a new voter ID law. In California, new restrictions on vote by mail. In Colorado, they tried and failed to restrict mail-in voting. In Connecticut, new restrictions on absentee mail applications. In Florida, the governor just signed a law criminalizing the handing out of food and water to voters in line, and a reduction in vote by mail drop boxes. In Georgia, the trendsetter, their law not only criminalizes the giving of food and water to voters in line, but also gets rid of mobile voting units and limits the power of the Secretary of State. In Hawaii, they're trying for new restrictions on mail-in voting. In Iowa, they passed a law reducing early voting. In Idaho, they want to crack down on absentee ballots. In Illinois, new obstacles to mail-in ballots and applications. In Indiana, a new voter ID law. In Kansas, they criminalized the collecting of absentee ballots. In Kentucky, they tried and failed to reduce the number of early voting days. In Louisiana, they want to make it harder to return absentee ballots. In Massachusetts, they're trying to introduce new photo ID requirements. In Maryland, new restrictions on the collection of absentee ballots. In Maine, another law trying to add photo ID requirements. In Michigan, they're trying to ban the Secretary of State not only from mailing out absentee ballot applications to all voters, but even from providing a link to them on a state website. In Minnesota, an attempt to undermine same-day voter registration. In Mississippi, a failed attempt to purge the voter roll of alleged non-citizens. In Missouri, a new bill to not just bring in photo ID rules, but to eliminate any requirement by the state to inform the public about those new rules. In Montana, they passed a law ending election day registration. In North Carolina, there's an attempt to restrict absentee ballots. In North Dakota, a failed attempt to eliminate no-excuse absentee voting. In Nebraska, they want, you guessed it, new photo ID requirements. In New Hampshire, they want to make it easier for state officials to purge voter rolls. In New Jersey, they want a suspension of automatic voter registration. In New Mexico, they tried and failed to get rid of same-day voting. In Nevada, new restrictions on mail-in ballots. In Oklahoma, they want to amend the Constitution to restrict absentee ballots. In Oregon, new restrictions on the collection of ballots. In Pennsylvania, new curbs on mail-in voting. In Rhode Island, new curbs on mail-in voting. In South Carolina, new curbs on mail-in voting. In South Dakota, a failed attempt to block the Secretary of State from sending out applications for absentee voting. In Tennessee, an attempt to reduce absentee voting. In Texas, the State House just passed a bill to restrict mail-in voting and to empower partisan poll watchers. In Utah, they passed a new law allowing the purging of voter rolls. In Virginia, a failed attempt to ban the use of ballot drop boxes. In Washington state, an attempt to end all-mail voting. In Wisconsin, an attempt to end absentee ballot drop boxes. In West Virginia, a photo ID bill. And in Wyoming, they passed a new voter ID law. Whew. So congratulations to Delaware, Ohio, and Vermont, the only 3 states in the union, according to the Brennan Center, that haven't had any voter suppression bills introduced so far. And in the other 47, the majority of the 361 bills haven't yet been passed into law. They can still be defeated. We can still stop them. Yeah, I said we. We as in small d Democrats who care about small d democracy in America. As a journalist, I'm not here to speak for a political party, but I am damn well here to speak for democracy, for free and fair elections, for voting rights. Sorry, there's no both sides when it comes to democracy. You can't sit on the fence or be neutral when our voting rights are under assault. I've said it before and I'll say it again. As journalists, we should have a bias towards democracy. And as citizens, you should also have a bias towards democracy, regardless of whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. Because make no mistake, democracy is under threat. I mean, what would you say if you saw this in another country? The defeated party and the defeated president inciting an insurrection, changing the election laws and trying to remove the officials who stood in their way. What would you call it? Authoritarianism? Fascism? What do we call what's going on in America right now? Because there are not two sides to this.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.